Hello, everyone. I'm Asha Nayaswami, and I'm here with my friend Suryani. Suryani is a resident now of Ananda, Palo Alto, and she's actually been helping me with a lot of broadcasting. So it's fun to put her on the other side of the camera today.
Hello.
Suryani, Suryani, tell us a little bit about who you were before Master found you. Where did you grow up? What were you like as a child? Your interests, your temperament? Just give us a little kind of a picture of you.
Okay.
How you became who you are.
Well, I grew up in Portland, and I didn't know anything about the Ananda community, but funny enough, growing up, one of my favorite places to go with my parents was the bookstore New Renaissance Bookshop that is currently owned still, I believe, by Ananda members. So I was always super active. I would always like to go play in the mud. I was supported not watching a lot of TV, so I was very out in the world. And whenever I was having a hard time, my mother would take me into crowds of people.
Really?
And it would take me outside of myself. And I loved watching people. I loved being very active. I couldn't sit still unless I was with a group of my parents' friends, and then I could be very well behaved.
Did you like adults? Was it that you liked being with adults, or?
Yeah, there was something, I don't know what it is, but aside from my school friends that I was put with because of school, I've always gravitated towards being friends with people that are older than me. And even here, all of my peers, the young women, myself and Satyavati are the youngest of the group.
Interesting. Yeah. How fun for you.
Yeah.
All right. So let's go back to, so you were very active as a child. Your mother took you into crowds to calm you down, which is really interesting.
Yes. And then because I was so active, well, actually, my mother tells it, one day they found me doing pull-ups on the kitchen table as a small child, and I don't remember that. It must have been really little, but they decided, let's put them into gymnastics. So I did gymnastics actually before that, I was in a little acting troupe, and I think I was 7 or something. I did Pinocchio, and I was the cricket.
Yes.
Yes, of course. The one who guides others in deep wisdom. And then I went into gymnastics, and I did rhythmic or artistic gymnastics, which is the classic vault, beam, floor routine for, I think, about 4 years. And then I switched to rhythmic because I started seeing people get hurt in ways that I never wanted to get hurt. And so I got a little panicked. Yeah. And then I went to rhythmic, and it was so much fun. It was the ribbon, the ball, the hoop, classically, like all the very flexible, contortionist kind of Russian women who are all the gold medalists. But then that was really hard on my body. After 3 years, they just literally break you to, rebuild your body in very weird ways. So my parents took me out of that, realizing that my body was already starting to break down at the age of, 13 or something. And they put me into ballet. And then I was in ballet for 3 years. And I loved it, but I never really felt like I fit into that mold because I was a very big, kind of clunky gymnast, a lot of muscle, and there was just not a lot of finesse to it. And I was around all these other kind of small, delicate, dainty dancers, and I thought, oh my God, I'm so out of my water here. So I can't remember how I found this teacher of mine, but she became kind of my mentor in high school, and she taught lyrical jazz and modern. And that's where I finally kind of found my groove, and I just loved it. We danced to kind of classical guitar and world music, and she's an alum to the college that I went to for dance and choreography, and she was the one, I ended up assisting her classes, and one day we showed up to teach a class and she said, oh, there's a class for you next door. Why don't you go have fun? I can take care of this. And so I walked in and they put a number on me and I thought, well, this is odd. And it turned out it was an audition for the college I got into. Yeah, she just kind of, I think she knew I'd get too nervous. So she just kind of threw me in there and it worked out really great. And so I went to California Institute of the Arts down near Los Angeles for my Bachelor in Fine Arts.
So your whole approach to life was physical. Physical. Yeah. It's interesting because a number of the men I've talked to in this series tell me that their passion in life was sports and the way they were able to settle at team sports and so on like that. Yeah. But you had the same sort of response, which is if you could pass the energy through your body.
Yeah.
Were
that
you
was the way to do it?
Were you studious at all? Were you a reader, or was all the energy in this way?
I loved stories. But I liked when my parents read them to me. My parents and I actually would read out loud until I think high school, until I got just too busy to really do it. But I love adventure novels. Even in the novels, though, I love, Lord of the Rings or, gallant heroes battling for justice and dragons and all those kind of magical stories. Those are really fun to me.
So growing up, was there any spiritual context to your life?
Yeah, so my mother grew up in a conservative Jewish family, and my father came from a Lutheran Christian background. But neither of them resonated with it, so they kind of exited that and then found each other in Portland and found a Taoist master that they practiced with.
Taoist, Chinese Taoist, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. They practiced with, I think, for a number of years until he passed on. So I grew up with my parents meditating, and my mother does energy work, and she creates her own energy essences that are similar to Bach flower essences, except for it just has from gemstones instead of flowers. And but I never grew up with a clear way to meditate, a recipe or a path, but spirituality and the awareness that there was something greater there from the very beginning.
Did you ever, it sounds to me like you were a pretty cheery, outgoing person. Would that be accurate to say that?
Yeah.
Did you ever contemplate the meaning of life, or were you just content with what came in front of you?
I don't think I ever contemplated in a conscious way, but I always had this feeling that I was meant for something more, and it always came in dreams or in daydreams of preparing for battle, kind of these feelings like something was going to come that was greater. And so I think that's why I've never had one career, I guess, for more than a couple years, because I enjoy it, I love it, but then it ceases to satisfy that higher purpose. And I get to this point where I think, gosh, there's got to be more. So I just keep moving, and finding Ananda was the first time that I thought, oh, I could actually give my whole life to this.
Oh, that's very interesting. I'm going to ask you just a little bit more about dance. Why do you love to dance?
I love it because it keeps me in the present moment. I have a tendency to get caught in my brain and overthink things, and there's this need to understand or get it before I live it. And in dance, I can't be anywhere but in the present moment, or I get hurt.
Yeah.
And so, and I think there's so many things to be aware of when I dance, like how my toes feel sliding across the floor. And there's also this wonderful flow, like the actual flow, the wind on this, blowing through the hair and the skin, but there's also just this real ease to it all. And if a mistake happens, you just it's easy to pick up and keep going. And I like that there's a real tangible way of knowing, seeing progress, like, oh, I couldn't do a pirouette yesterday, but today I could do it.
Yeah. It's very good. Did you ever have, or have you ever had what you would call transcendent experiences while dancing?
I think a few times. Well, what I will say is that I've had a few, they're always in performances,
Mhm.
because I kind of, stand at the edge of the stage, half terrified. And what did Pavarotti say? I go to die. And it felt like that. I'm going to go to die. But I just kind of give it to God. I didn't put it that way. I just, all right, universe, I'll give it to you. And whatever you want to do with me in the next 5 to 10 minutes, I'm yours. And then I let go and I go on. And sometimes I would come off not having any memory of what happened, but I knew it just felt good. It just kind of blurred by, and it had this lightness to it. And I felt expanded afterwards.
Did the word God ever enter the conversation or your thoughts with any of this in your dreams of being for something higher or preparing for battle?
No, not the specific word God. There was, I don't know, there was almost a resistance to because I didn't grow up with any type of religious context. I think there was almost this idea that religion went hand in hand with dogma.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was resistant to that, but I was very open to, terms like white light or Christ light awareness, or, the idea of spiritual guides, and divine light. So actually, when I showed up to Ananda for the first couple of years, it was really challenging for me to see a picture of Christ on the wall and to talk about God using the word God, even though when it was broken down into the 8 aspects, or once it was explained to me what it meant, it was completely in alignment of everything I'd always felt was right. And so it was just kind of about getting my head and my heart to be in alignment, which took a while, but
well,
yeah.
let's back up just a little bit so that
Yeah.
we can go there sequentially, but that's all right. So you go to Los Angeles to get this degree in choreography and dance, and presumably you had a great time doing that. I mean, since
Yeah, I
so,
did.
so you end up with a degree in dance, which is not like, or choreography, which is, in Los Angeles, every waiter has a degree in some kind of performing arts, So what did you do? What was your next step after that? Were you able to find a career in dance, or?
Well, I went back to Portland. I actually never felt at home in Southern California. I originally even wanted to go to the Boston Conservatory, but I got a higher scholarship from Cal Arts, so I went there. And it ended up being the school that was perfect for me, but I just wouldn't have chose it on my own. So when I was done being in Valencia, which is the area that the college is in, I said, great, I get to leave this small town. And so I went back to Portland, and I got into a dance company there. And that was really fun, but I only got paid $50 a week.
That's not very much.
No. So I was living at home with my parents, and I was there for 3 years, and somehow it just felt like I got stuck into this kind of conundrum, or a catch-22. I had dreams of being a part of a world-class, world internationally touring company that could change or move dance forward as an art form. But in order to travel to audition, I had to have enough money. And in order to have money, I had to have a job. And so I just felt like I got stuck figuring out how to make the logistics happen.
Right.
So then I fell into a different career.
Which was?
Voiceover.
Voiceover for animated features and.
Yeah. I thought naively, oh, it could be a career, because as long as you have a microphone, you could do it anywhere. I thought it could support my dance career, but it's just as involved as dance. So it just ended up taking over, which was fun. And that is actually what brought me back to Los Angeles, because that's where the training is for animation.
So when did Master enter the story here?
So when I was back in LA, after being in Portland, I was there for a couple years, and a friend of mine in the voiceover industry knew I was a dancer and a choreographer and said, I have a friend, would you ever want to choreograph for the movies? And I thought, my God, I'd never thought that could be even an option. I didn't ever think that was a career, but I said yes. So he connected me to a man who was Keshiva Betts's teacher in college. So I was on a gig, a stunt gig, and then I met Keshiva Betts, who has been interviewed in these before and grew up at Ananda Village. And when I met him, that's when I found Ananda.
So it came in that way. Did you, when you saw Master's picture for the first time or read autobiography, was there any sense of recognition, or did it come slowly?
It came slowly for me, and it was actually more in the people. It was in I've always been a very social person, and I think Master took that tendency and used it for that wonderful purpose, used it in that way to get me to come in, because I didn't have an automatic recognition. And the AYs, or Autobiography of a Yogi, I love the stories, but it didn't floor me, or it didn't awaken that soul recognition. But the people that I met, Narayan and Dharma Devi, and when I met Jyotish and Devi and the others that had dedicated their lives to it, I just felt like I'd found home in the family that I was getting to know. And that's actually what kept me coming back, because I really had a struggle to kind of get on board, like, is this my path? Because within 6 months, my whole life had changed. I let go of my career, what I thought my career was going to be, and I dedicated my life completely to Ananda.
But still you were working with the pictures on the altar and Jesus and the word God and all of those things.
Yeah, and as difficult as it was, and it was really a challenge, because I felt like it was it was forcing me to get rid of a lot of bad habits and to face why I actually have resistances to those pieces, instead of just saying, oh, that's just not for me. But the people, I just wanted to be around the people. There was a twinkle in their eye and a joy that I wanted to have. And they were all so supportive and wonderful that I kept coming back, and I wanted to be in the classes with them. And so they kept offering me more opportunities. And it was when I took discipleship that I had a soul recognition.
And how did you come to the point where you were ready to do that?
Well, I just kept trusting that I was in the right place at the right time, as much as I didn't mentally understand it. I felt like the first couple years, or at least first year, was really a leap of faith after leap of faith, because in my gut, I just knew it felt like the right thing, even though I had no idea why. So I just kept saying yes and summoning the courage to do it. And then eventually I got to the point where I walked in the door for discipleship, and suddenly I didn't have a mental awakening of any kind, but I felt like I was grounded in it for the first time. Like it became my own more.
When I looked back on my very early years with Ananda, and of course I had a very strong instant recognition of Swami, but there was a lot of other stuff that took a little more time. But in retrospect, how I saw myself, I mean, this is like 15 or 20 years later, I saw my mind and it looked like a twisted bowl of spaghetti. And I saw my heart, and my heart was absolutely clear and had just one pointing arrow in it. And so there was just like two realities. Fortunately, my heart was just not paying attention to my mind. And then my mind gradually untied its knots and sort of sorted itself out.
That's exactly how it felt to me. And there were, I think I've battled with doubt, doubting, is this my path? Is this really what I want? Because I had what I thought was such a clear trajectory to someday owning a dance company or setting up a production company, or I don't know, something along those lines, that this was just something that I had not thought of. I didn't even think that living a life like this was an option. So I had never played with the idea of it even. And so, it was just getting good at trusting my gut and my intuition. It was really a test of that, I think.
Do you feel, how do I want to exactly ask this? Have all the parts of you come together now? So when you came to Ananda, how many years ago was that?
About 4.5.
So it's been 4.5 years. So now after this much time, do you feel that you've become integrated in what you're doing?
I do. Yeah. I feel like it's really my own. And I feel like even when I have questions, it's not about whether this is the right place for me. That's very clear. Yeah.
When you have questions, what are the questions then? If it's not, is this my right place?
I think sometimes I get caught up in trying to see the future or trying to see the long run, like where in Ananda do I, like what's going to be my career and my path? Because it's always been my tendency to see 10 steps ahead or see myself, as a 60-year-old owning a dance company. But the steps between here and there are not as easy for me to just enjoy the process.
So are you learning to enjoy the process?
Yeah, I am. I'm really enjoying letting go and trusting. I think that's one of the wonderful things about having Master on my side is when I get caught up in trying to figure out the future, I just say, oh, well, I'll just let go. I'll let you guide me and show me the way. And then I can relax because I do have a deep trust and faith that everything has been planned, because nothing in my life has worked out the way I thought it would work out. So why should I try to figure out the rest of it?
Now, are you always able to put aside your concerns easily, or is it still an inner struggle for you?
I think it depends on how important that struggle is. If it's something small, it's easy to let go. If it's something bigger, then another thing I've really learned to do here is ask for help. I've never been, I'm an only child, and a lot of my way of dealing with hard times was just shut my door, go into my room, and just kind of stew or figure it out myself. And so in the past, I think 4.5 years has been a really big growth in asking for help and finding people that I feel I can really trust their advice.
So is that an aspect of what Ananda has brought you, is people whose advice you can trust?
Yeah, people that kind of pick everything up from the same perspective, and everything falls underneath that or under the umbrella of the spiritual path and masters guiding us. It's like that common point of or it's just what everybody has in common, and it's picked up from what feels like the highest point you could possibly pick anything up from. So I trust their perspective more than I think I've trusted perspective of just anybody out in the world, because who knows what their goals are.
That's very astute. Do you miss performing? Do you miss are you regretful that you may never own a dance company?
Not in the least. I mean, I have the wonderful opportunity. I'm doing a solo this Sunday for service, so dance has kind of come back into my life, and it's so much more joyful in this way too than it was before, because I mean, I had so much fun and I don't regret a minute of it, but a lot of the dance and the teachings at my college were very avant-garde, and so it was kind of movement for movement's sake, or there were art pieces that were exactly like you were talking about this morning, where you take a banana and you tape it to the wall and you call it art. I mean, I walked in one day and there was a pile of trash in the middle of the floor and the label that said, "This is art." And so a lot of the dance was wonderful dance, but it was more of what looked pretty and movement for movement's sake. And I, after a while, just, it really became clear that I needed a purpose to why I was moving and why I was sharing it, or what I was sharing. So being here and picking a chant, it's very clear the purpose, trying to channel the divine and feel, or even the simplicity of just getting to know Swami more. Yeah.
Oh, you more because you're dancing to his music? Is that what you meant by that?
Yes. Yeah.
So when you not only hear it, but then you let it run through your body, then that's another relationship to it. Since you brought up Swami's name, you came after he'd already passed. So you never met him in person?
Correct.
How does he influence your spiritual life if he does?
He just feels like another guide. And I've never really had, like heard words or like visions or anything quite that bold, but in a way I feel like I know him very well. Getting to see his picture on my altar and reading his words and hearing others speak about him, he just feels like an old friend. And when for this particular piece, it's been a really fun opportunity and a challenge to do it because I have to watch myself dancing on camera to see what it looks like. So I it's not as easy as separating, oh, that's the dancer in the piece. So I have to dance it and figure it out and then see what it looks like without picking myself apart, which is not easy to do. And so whenever I get stuck or I think, wow, I don't like that move, what's next? I've been rehearsing in the temple, so I luckily can just turn around and say, okay, I don't know what's next, but you do. This is your dance. you show me what's next. And I think every single time within the next 10 minutes, something has flowed out that I didn't expect.
Perfect. So dance, just to say it out loud, is an area of Ananda that has not been as fully developed as music or writing, and it's an area that Swamiji wanted to see developed. So your attunement to it, it's a very open-ended potential. I think that's wonderful. Yeah, marvelous for you. Every disciple has a particular way. So when you see yourself going forward in the future being a disciple, what does discipleship, what does it look like to you to be? Now, you've been trying to keep yourself from looking into the future, but let's try to look into it in a different way. But just what does it mean to be a disciple, and how do you see your life unfolding in terms of being a disciple?
I think being of service to those around me, and as much as possible, disappearing into the energy of Master and Swami Kriyananda, and allowing them to flow through me. I think that's what, the more that Suryani can disappear and let them come through, I think for me that's the discipleship I want to work on. And whatever tasks I'm given to do, whether I'm a school teacher or I do dance, or whether I serve at the temple in the Sangha or head the boutique, it doesn't really matter as long as I'm doing what I feel I'm being asked to do by them.
It's perfect, absolutely perfect. Just for the sake of our audience, your solo dance is going to be May 31st. This is 2020, and on the Palo Alto. Oh dear, I don't know if it's going to. I was going to say, because they don't always. The live presentation of that, which will be probably around 11 o'clock, will be presented. We'll have to make sure that a recording of it gets posted just for fun. Try to link it to this interview so that people can see expressed what you've been talking about. All right, my dear, it's just been a joy to fill in a lot of pieces and to hear you talk especially so much about dance, which is not something I do, but is something I love. It's sort of, for me, it's like it's a past life memory. And it's wonderful. One of the things about Ananda is that we all get to act out each other's karma for each other.
Yes, exactly.
Enjoy it through you. Thank you so much. A pleasure to be with you.
Thank you so much. It's been a joy.
It has indeed. Okay.